So it came from channel pages, 40.5%.
We're streaming now.
What does that mean?
That's 40% of the views came from that source.
Channel pages, what does it mean?
Your channel?
Browse features, 38.1.
Okay, we're live. And I don't always know what that means. It could be when somebody looks for something on YouTube and it just pops up on the top of their browser.
Okay.
Or maybe that's a recommendation.
Since you're asking me if I knew where sources came from anyway, I'm here.
Hey, a couple of people have shown up. You may be one of them. Aaron, hello, Aaron, hi. We've got a full lunar eclipse. Well, we have a lunar eclipse, partial lunar eclipse coming. Ian says, hello, welcome everyone. That's coming on Tuesday. I just read that there was a pretty significant solar storm. So fun for the Aurora Borealis. Ian says, please participate if you want to.
I don't want to force anybody. You must participate.
Yeah, that's
or
true.
The world will end.
That's right. We don't like that. People don't like that. And I don't blame them. You have that issue sometimes in ritual where, you know, people feel that they're being forced to do the ritual in a certain way and are uncomfortable and they don't have space in which to express.
Next time we'll have to adjust your color a little bit.
Well, I noticed
it looks more orange
than red. Yeah.
It's actually more red than it looks, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll tweak that a little bit next time before we start the show.
There's always things to tweak.
Bring that same shirt out here again.
Uh-oh.
Get it just right.
Well, at least I didn't bring that really super bright orange one that flashes and makes the screen go insane. I thought about wearing that one. Teresa says, that's a nice dress on you. Thank you. It's a little silk shirt. It's actually a pantsuit that I have. It's got, I think I picked it up at Goodwill or something. And I like the fact that it's silk, and I just thought, yep, why not? I like wearing silk. I like getting it cheap.
It reminds me, there's a piece of silk out here I wanted to look for.
Meg, you look like a beautiful tomato. Don't worry. All right, I am a tomato.
You like a beautiful tomato?
I am a beautiful tomato.
Better that.
Robert says, hello, all. Glad to be here. Hi, Robert. Nice to see you back. Yep. Some of you guys live in places where you can get some really nice auroras in the next couple of days. Apparently, we had a X 4.5 flare, I think. So it's sort of right in the middle of the X-class flares and a level 3 geomagnetic storm on the way. So I don't know. It says that people in Oregon will see it, but I'm suspecting that's northern Oregon, not down south where we are. So Robert says, Siofra, if one suspects that has a curse on him due to ancestors, what is the cure? Okay, basically the cure for any curse, no matter what it is or what the source is to get into your own power so that curses can't affect you. And that's like the overall cure for a curse. If you know the source of the curse and you know why the curse is there, that gives you more information. And sometimes you can like deal with it on that level, process the information, or find ways to break that kind of curse. Depends on the type of magic that's being used and what the activating feature is.
It would be a different thing if like a Santero sent one of the deities after you or something, but that wouldn't be a standard curse. But so it
no, but I'm thinking of some of the Voodoo stuff where, like, you know, the go away powder, stepping on it, putting a nail underneath your shoe.
Those kind of things, yeah.
Yeah, because that's one of the kinds of things that they might do. And in that case, if you find the trigger mechanism, then you can dispose of it.
Yeah, it depends a lot on what's, you know, how it was brought about. I mean, knowing that would help a whole lot. if you had an idea how it
And
might have been done.
if it's an ancestor curse, then do you know anything about it, or is it just a suspicion because you're having a hard time with getting things done that you're wanting to get done?
As long as it's not that somebody told you you have one and want to get some money from you to get rid of it, which
Yeah,
is also a common scam that's worked
it's a
by
huge,
people. Yeah.
yes, it's a huge scam. I've had people try that one on me and offer to take it off for a fee. I could have made a lot of money doing that, I guess. But I mean, if you develop yourself to the point where you are self-contained, your boundaries are secure, emotional, physical, psychic boundaries, then it's harder for those things to actually affect you. It sort of gives you a natural immunity to the whole process.
Yes, it does, and that goes for pretty much any kind of curse, anything. Even if somebody sends you, even if somebody were to send like a being after you or something, you can shore your defenses up a whole lot. That will help against all kinds of things like that in general.
Yeah,
I'm agreeing with you, so
yeah.
continue. Sorry.
Um, and sending energy back to its source or refusing to acknowledge or accept that kind of thing. If you have changed, if it's an ancestor's curse and it has to do with who your ancestors were and what they did, you being a different person, you can kind of cut the cords from that kind of background and so forth. I don't know, but there's a few ideas out there, and that's definitely a thing.
Yeah, really, we need more detail to get more specific.
So Aaron says, if I have a clear sky, I will try and get a pic. Oh, for the moon. Cool. Or the aurora. That's probably what it was. Teresa says, I received a beautiful unexpected distance healing today. That was so helpful and cleared a lot of old emotional pain. Much gratitude.
That sounds nice.
Terrific. It's always good when that happens. Robert says, I suspect ancestors, but unsure they might be rogue ancestors or masquerading as such. Okay. Beth says, hi, everyone. Hi, Beth. Grateful Owl says, hi, good day to you all. And hi, Beth.
Hello.
Hi, Grateful Owl. Robert says, hello, Beth. Wonderful, Beth. Hi, Grateful. Jen says, hello, everyone. Happy to be here. Hi, Jen. Beth says, hi, Grateful Owl. Hello, Robert. Everyone's saying hi to each other. Okay. You all can see that you're saying hello to one another.
Yeah.
It's always good to be polite. All right. But yeah, I mean, really, when it comes to that kind of thing, it is that being in that position of self-assured power and natural authority stops a lot of that kind of stuff from happening. Sometimes curses get an in because you have, I don't know, feelings of guilt or misgivings, or somehow, you think there's reason for it, or you're seeing things as a pattern that don't actually have a pattern and you're feeding the idea. A lot of people, the generator for most curses is actually the person who believes that they've been cursed themselves. And for the majority of that kind of cursing, the person who does it wants you to know. So if you're guessing, then I would go with the assumption that even if it is true, it doesn't matter, because it shouldn't stop you from evolving and developing yourself and, coming into your own when it comes to that. Apparently, I've had sort of a natural immunity to that for a long time. My friend Yvonne tried doing a curse on me she got involved with a group of sisters, these two sisters who were going by Anton LaVey's Satanic Bible, and they were doing a harm your person using cookies by smashing them and making them like fall apart and so forth, and throwing all your hate and whatnot into the cookie. And I hadn't seen her for a while, and somehow they convinced her I was an enemy. I don't know how they did that, but she did that, and then it backfired on her immediately. I didn't even know consciously that it had taken place, because I was in the DC area, I think, at the time that this happened. And she was up in Vancouver, British Columbia, so distance-wise, there was a fair amount of it, and communication-wise, there was a lot of that as well. We hadn't seen each other for years, at least a while anyway. And apparently, because of my own natural defenses, it backfired on her, and she had like a horrific night where she was hallucinating and seeing demons and all kinds of things, apparently. I don't know if she was on drugs at the time, but sounded like it was bad. And she called on me for help, which I thought was ironic. I found this all out when I went up there and we got back together and she fessed up to all the stuff that had happened. And so, it's like, as far as I was concerned, nothing had taken place. There was really nothing for me to do on a conscious level. It didn't impact me at all. So I think that that's a pretty good example that the natural defenses can really seriously work in your favor when it comes to that. Teresa says, one subject I rarely see talked about is what can happen when someone's magical abilities far outpace one's emotional growth and healing. Thought it might be a good topic to touch on. Well, yeah, actually, that's one of the biggest problems. That's why we talk a lot about balance and, emotional balance and so forth. I know for me, that's one of the reasons I needed therapy was because with all the abuse that I suffered, my psychic abilities and magical abilities in that sense, as well as my intellectual abilities continue to evolve and grow, but my emotional self was very much stunted. And just going through therapy really helped me to start to get a handle on that and realize I was still responding to things as if I was 4 and 5 years old, maybe 6, somewhere around there. So I didn't have any emotional intelligence when it came to how to communicate, how to accept making a mistake, how to apologize, which was a huge thing. Like, oh no, if I apologize, everything will, die because I have to be perfect kind of stuff. And I think that people make a lot of mistakes because of that lack of emotional development when it comes to magic. I think a lot of that kind of stuff is like baneful magic comes out with lack of emotional intelligence, and people react from that kind of a gut level and want to get revenge or get back at somebody or flame out or what have you, send them negative energy, that kind of thing. So certainly having emotional control is a good thing if it's not and if it's genuine. I mean, if you're having to like force yourself not to do something harmful to someone because you really want to, but you've chosen not to, that's good. But you want to get to the place where that idea just doesn't even pop up. And so that's
Yeah.
part of that whole evolution. Robert says, Siofra, did you ever do chaos magic or chaos magic? Spelling might be different. No, I was never really interested in chaos magic. I read about it and it wasn't for me. That's the one that's based on Lovecraft
Yeah,
stuff.
to me it seems like a harder way of going about things myself, but just speaking for myself, it seems like there are easier ways if you're using an established currents of ways to do things that have been engraved in the universe, so to speak, for lots and lots of years. It seems to me that it gives them a lot more power than
Yeah,
having to create your own from scratch. I mean, anybody can create their own from scratch, but sorry,
it's true.
I'll let you continue
Everybody
with that.
can.
Yeah.
Anybody can. I mean, somebody got mad at me once because they wanted to use Daenerys, uh, the dragon
Right, Targaryen. Yeah.
Targaryen,
Yeah.
from Game of Thrones as a goddess figure, and people were telling, I think a him, I can't remember for sure, that that was a bad idea. And he said, why can't I do it? And I said, well, you can, but there's no real energetic foundation for her as a fictional character to be an actual goddess. You'd have to really build it up and feed it. You can do it, but the amount of energy it would take is kind of phenomenal. And there's so many other established goddess forms out there that you could just tap into, find one similar. But yeah, that kind of thing. Robert says, Shifa, I try to enchant an object and I use only a flame stare for 5 minutes and then put the intent inside the object. Would that be it? How do I know it worked?
Well, main thing is your intent. That is the most important part. However, you go about doing it in practice, putting your intent into it is the most important part. I'll let you finish the rest of that, dear.
Well, keep on trying and practice. I mean, it depends on what you're doing. If you're trying to charge up, you say you're enchanting an object, so are you trying to like make it look like something else, or are you trying to charge it up with a specific kind of energy to have an effect on other people or on yourself? Is it like a talisman kind of thing for protection or for opening up different pathways? It would be good to know that, I think. I might be able to have more specific answers.
Yeah. As far as how do you know if it worked, that takes experience. If you find, like I do, if you've charged up objects, enough different types of objects, pretty soon you can tell because next time you go to charge it, it's much easier. For me, I can tell, if something is being effective because the more charge it gets, the more easy it is when I go to put some energy in it to take on that charge and stuff, so it just feels different. And so for myself, I don't have the clairvoyance enough to tell by looking at something and get a visual clairvoyant view of whether it's effective, but I can feel the difference when especially if I leave it alone for a few days and then I go back to try and add some charge to something I've already charged up. I can feel, it's so much easier to charge something that's had a bunch of repetitions than it is something that's just brand new. So after a while, you get to feel the difference, So I don't know how to describe it other than that.
Well, and
You can
experience
kind
is
of
definitely
tell,
part of
yeah.
the thing. And the other thing is, there's no reason just to charge something up once. I mean,
Yeah, I always do multiple times myself.
right. And so if you think that just doing it for 5 minutes with a candle and that's it and you're done, then that's probably not as charged or as effective as it could be because the more energy and time and effort and focus and concentration and will you put into something, the more likely it is to do what it is you're trying
Yeah,
to get
and,
it to
and
do.
that's one of the reasons for the old grimoires listing so many detailed and specific little things for you to do. It's not so much the grimoires will tell you that it's important to do everything exactly according to these rules, but most of the rules are largely BS and they're mostly not all of them, mind you, but a lot of them are mostly to build up your intent towards that direction and create more intent in the universe for your operation to happen and that kind of thing. So basically, in short, the more effort and energy you put into the whole process, if you make it a giant big ceremony and everything and put that much more effort into it, you'll get that much more of an effect. So yeah, it's all about working with it. And of course, you don't have to have a ceremony if you're good at, like with Barton's methods, you just impress it and you just do that multiple times, impress your intent or your willpower on an object or what have you, or whatever energy you're using. It's a big subject,
Yeah,
really.
so Robert says that Siofra I enchant to give me extra protection that my body didn't spot, sort of better insurance in case I miss something, and also designed to attract wealth. Yeah,
Uh,
so doing it multiple times would definitely be a good idea.
yeah, I would probably keep the two things separate. The one to attract wealth, if you want them to be maximum effectiveness, don't try to put two goals into the same object. Keep
Better
a
to have two
separate
different
one. Yeah,
objects, one for one thing and one for the other.
yeah.
Yeah, because if you're trying to protect yourself and you're trying to be wealthy or attract wealth, it could be that, yeah, I don't know if it could have any conflict or not, but it's a
Well, not
possibility.
necessarily, but yeah, they're. I would do them separately. It's just going to be more powerful if that's the only thing you're focusing on when you work with that object.
Yeah, yeah, not splitting your focus.
Yeah.
So Jen says, Schieffer, I had some questions from watching your video about different bodies. Is it okay to ask them here now? I
Yes, it
don't want
is.
to
Of course.
derail the chat. No, it's fine.
No,
Perfectly
that's what our
fine.
chat is for here.
Yeah. Meg says, hope it's okay to ask, but how does one go about genetic diseases such as endometriosis and porphyria? I'm a young woman who loves life, but chronic pain is blocking me from doing anything. There are hard things to deal with, and I mean, I don't know how much you can do about a genetic disorder because although there's people that think that you can change your genes with your mind, I'm not sure if that's viable or not. And figuring out ways to adapt and cope with the after effects and so forth of the illnesses, and then look for ways to reach out to find out about new research
Yeah,
and different forms of treatment and find out what works for you best.
and also healing. You can always approach. You can always put healing energy into it. Even if you may not be able to change the genetic condition, you may be able to change the amount of suffering you go through by doing some energy healing and things like that.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So you can take a layered approach to it, and there's no reason not to do the energetic stuff like Ian was talking about, getting healing energy going and so forth. But also don't think that it's some kind of a punishment, that there's a reason why you have it. It's sometimes just like the opposite of winning a
Accidents to
lottery.
birth, yeah.
It's kind of like
Accidental
the
birth, yeah.
genetic uh, thing you've got going with you. And everyone has something they have to figure out how to deal with. Some are a lot more intense and severe than others for sure, but I think everybody out there pretty much has had some kind of a physical body challenge that has suddenly cropped up that they have to survive or cope, um, and find out how well they can. So I'm sorry that that's happening to you.
Yeah, and also you can do you might look up some specific, I don't have any off the top of my head, but there are some meditational techniques to help block pain. It's not something I've had to work with, tried to deal with myself, but I know there are some techniques that can help for that.
We used the doctors thought at one point that Ian might have porphyria, so I learned a fair amount about it. And apparently, bloodletting is one of the treatments for porphyria. And so that was one thing that they got right with leeches. That was the only thing that actually helped. I mean, in the old days, I don't think you need to use leeches anymore. You can just go in and donate a lot of blood, but because it builds up an excessive amount of iron in the liver, which damages the liver. But
Yeah,
but anyway, yeah. So, and Gita says, greetings from Ethiopia. Do chanting and spirituality go side by side? I mean, do I need to work with spirits for my chanting to work?
short answer, no, you don't
No,
need to,
you really don't.
though you can.
Yeah, you can, but you don't have to. Chanting can work on its own. It's kind of like, if you think of the universal mind as kind of a blank slate that you're trying to imprint things upon, there are different ways to imprint it with what you're looking for, what you're trying to do, how you can communicate with the universe in order to start effects happening that will then come back and give you what it is you're looking for.
Yeah, the most important thing is intention and focus on chanting like that. Picture your goal of what you're chanting for.
And the whole purpose of doing those different kinds of things is to build up that imprint, that program that you're trying to communicate with the universe. And there's different pathways to be able to do it. And certainly deity is one, and chanting is another, and
Yeah.
personal development and ritual and
the
ceremony.
imagery I like is like inscribing a groove in the universe. You do it over and over, and the groove gets deeper and deeper. And so, yeah, that kind of thing. But you need to not just chant over and over. You need to chant with the visualization and the feeling that you're accomplishing whatever the goal of the chanting is. You need to feel it and visualize it while you're chanting the chant.
Robert says, Siofra, thanks for your advice. Actually, I'm curious, did you ever work with a trapped spirit inside a bottle or a box? Or even a spirit that is voluntary to be? I've worked with spirits that have been attached to objects, but we did have one spirit that was stuck inside of his statue. I guess that would sort of qualify as this. There was a fairly large Buddha head, a wooden Buddha head, that showed up in our local stores here. And when I walked into the antique shop where it was, and I was just looking around because, it's kind of interesting to see what might be there. And I came around the side and the back of the displays and saw the head, I suddenly became aware of a communication from the spirit in the head, the Buddha spirit, and saw what had happened to it. Its temple had been desecrated. Its head had been cut off, the main part of the statue. There was a lot of soldiers and violence and stuff going on around it, and it was pretty upset about where it was and what had happened to it. And so we went about rescuing that. And what we did to rescue it was we have a Buddha that I bought, and we made a house for the spirit, a complete home, so it wasn't broken. Although it broke first, and then we put it together, which I think was actually perfect for the symbolism for what had happened to this particular spirit. And then we went to the store and invited it to inhabit that statue, and then brought it here into our temple. And so it became a part of our temple. First, I tried contacting Buddhist temples to see if I could get someone to purchase it and take it somewhere it belonged. And Buddhism is such a huge kind of path. There are plenty of Buddhists who don't believe that spirits inhabit, uh, vessels and that kind of thing. But this one was definitely sort of in the temple it was in, the prayers to it, the worshiping of it, the talking to it, energetic stuff created this being, or attracted this being to the statue. So I've had that kind of thing a few times. Um, yeah, we did have an encounter with a malevolent spirit that was stuck inside of a wax figure. Was in a museum display, a silly little museum called Ship of Shore down south, just before the California border, I think, or right after, I can't remember.
I
But
think it was before, but
I
I'm
think
not
it was
100%
before.
now. It's gone now, so.
But that one, when I met it, the presence that was stuck inside of it, the rage, the kind of rage it had, it wasn't angry because it was stuck, and it wasn't, having issues like that because of its situation. It was just malevolent, and it seemed pretty clear that someone had put it in there for a reason that I wasn't aware of. So I left it alone, and I left the area. I'm like, okay, I'm out of here. I don't know what the heck is going on. So just because you come across something doesn't mean you necessarily are either going to be able or want to take care of the issue. I figure things like some kind of force put that thing there. But yeah, so Jenna's sacred space says, I have started stating I do not consent to pain and illness, and I'm having very good results with it.
Well, that's good. So, yeah, that
Positive
subconscious,
affirmation.
that auto-suggestion can work really well at times for some things.
Beth says you can also focus on the chakra the organ is located and do some chakra balancing. Jenna says, I think you should sit with it, though, and exploring how your life would be different without it. Many times the illness enables a deeper root need or fear. Well, I certainly have encountered that with some people. I'll put that there so I can get it. Robert says, Jenna, wow, it's because you're talking to the matrix and show your intent. You will have indeed have great results if you persist. The overlord of this matrix will be angry, but they are weak. Teresa says, is there a difference between the etheric and spiritual realms? I think they're pretty much different words for the same thing.
Yeah, it's all, you have
Ether
to,
and Akasha are kind of.
well, I would look to where you, the definition used in the place where you get it, because I would consider etheric like causal, and a lot of aspects. I mean, spiritual, Barton considers the mental plane the same as a spiritual plane, and the mental body he also terms the spirit. So they can be different. It kind of depends. I would ask the definition of, whatever, wherever you're getting that, and see what their definition of it is, because it's all nomenclature one way or another.
That's true. Language being what it is.
You need to ask what they mean wherever you get the information from, because based on my Barden background, I would say they are different in that sense. But I don't know that uh, oh, I don't know how many people would agree with that, honestly.
But again, language is like that.
Yeah.
Jenna says, once you explore the need or fear, you can eliminate a deeper meaning. Robert says, yes, Beth, for healing, I project my hand towards the hurt place and project it into outer space on an energy level. Or you can direct it into the ground and let the earth take it away and reuse the energy so that it doesn't go to waste. Meg says, thank you so much. Jen says, thank you. My questions were, how do you ground out thought forms? Is one. Two, is the aura of the astral body projecting beyond the borders of the physical body? Okay, so one, how do you ground out thought forms? Okay, well, if it's my thought form, then all I need to do is ground myself and clear my mind and my thoughts, and they're grounded. If it's someone else's thought forms, which like happened to me when I was in Mount Shasta and a few other times that I've seen them, it's like I just see the thought form or know the thought form is there and visualize it going down into the ground. It's just
Yeah,
very
and
simple imagery.
if it helps, you can automate that by using, like, if you're looking at grounding out thought forms specifically, you could use like a piece of petrified wood or a piece of obsidian and use your willpower and intent, as I believe Robert was talking about earlier, and focus your intent on it, that it grounds out those thought forms as they come to you. Focus on the fact of grounding out the negative ones, because you might want some positive ones for inspiration or something. But yeah, you can have it automatically send them to ground for you, and then it can be a piece of protection that you wear, and it works when you're wearing it, and it doesn't work when you don't have it on, and that makes it the whole process a lot more similar or easier, because obsidian comes from the ground, of course, so it's natural, and then petrified wood is something that's turned to earth or stone from the wood, so it makes a good ground also.
There's a lot of good grounding stones.
Yeah.
Okay, so the second question is the aura of the astral body projecting beyond borders of the physical body? Not exactly, because the aura is part of the natural energetic field that we create, electrical field, magnetic field that we create because of the electricity of our um, the ions that go through our bloodstream, the negative and positive ions that carry our nerve impulses, create a magnetic field, which creates a field around us. So part of it is our physical body and not the astral body, but then part of it
Yeah.
is also our astral body. So it's kind of like a combination of things.
Right, and the way Barton describes it, the aura ends up being a emanation depending on that varies depending on how your elements are balanced in your astral body and that. So it can be seen as an effect of the astral body or almost or that type of thing, but not exactly the same.
Well, right, physical ailments can show
Yeah.
up in the aura, and you can see, if you can see the aura clear enough, you can see where energy blockages and things are in the physical body, as well as the astral or mental bodies, depending on how good your clairvoyant abilities might be, and how clear you are about not projecting your own stuff onto the person you're looking at, which is a huge risk when you're working on those levels, because most people aren't very clear, and it's difficult to separate out your own stuff and your tendency to project your stuff onto someone else and then see it reflected back to you. So yeah, that's a whole different skill set too. So Jenna says, I think speaking right to our body is extremely beneficial. Yes. Jen says, three, you said that you viewed feelings and emotions as different. Can you expand on that? Okay, so for me, when it comes to, like, say, the chakras, if you're looking at the chakras, emotions come from, like, the hara, the solar plexus area, the lower chakras, and feelings come from the heart. And the main difference I see between the two of them is feelings clarify, help to give you direction, help you know what to do. It helps you to see the truth of a situation, what's really going on behind it, and is not confusing. Emotions tend to be quick, like anger, frustration, fear, anxiety, that kind of thing. Those are all emotional based, and they tend to cloud the situation, kind of like pouring water on a hot fire and getting steam and you can't see through the fog to see what's going on. So that's the way I see the difference between emotions and feelings, whether they come from those centers or not. I still see that as the difference between those two things,
I
that they're
know
separate.
I'll say that's a good explanation of them coming from the centers, because you got the root center, which is your survival center, and all those feelings or whatever word, what were you using, feelings,
Emotions for lower
right?
stuff and feelings
Well,
for upper stuff.
well, whatever, but they're going to be very powerful and more base. So as you go down, they become more base. So like the stomach is also associated with survival, and that's the one that makes you angry. When you get angry at people, it's supposed to be for your survival, but we get angry for
Yeah,
all
and
kinds of
also
reasons,
anxiety,
Yeah,
butterflies in your stomach,
yeah,
so that's you actually literally feel them
yeah.
in that area.
So everything below the heart chakra is very base and primitive in that sense. I mean, in another sense, it's not, because all those things have higher aspects
Right.
that are also available in those chakras. Like your root chakra is also a good center for well, the Earth zone. It has an aspect of your conscience. That, sorry, I'm trying to get too esoteric. That won't go there. That would take too much explanation.
Okay.
But yeah, the highest is in the lowest kind of thing.
And
As
that would
above,
be
so
how I
below.
view the difference between
Yeah.
feelings and emotions, which is the answer to your question.
Yeah. Sorry.
Robert says, agreed, Jenna. Our vocal cords are strong with vibes. Astra says, hey guys. Hi, Astra. Some dude says, peace, peace. Thank you. Jenna says, yes, and sit with feeling. Violet says, hi, Shifa and Ian. Hi, Violet.
Violet.
Beth says, hi, Astra. And hi, Beth. Teresa says, my cats and dog are getting used to hearing your voice. They're all curled up around my laptop on my bed.
Well, that's cute.
We like that.
Hi, beasties. How you
Yes.
doing?
And I've had a number of cats who really like the sound of my voice, as well as some dogs too. So that's always good. Jen says, 4. What are some things, exercises one can do to develop the clairs? Thank you again. Well, there's a lot of different things to do to develop the clairs. The biggest thing you can do, of course, is to be as balanced and centered in yourself as possible, so that the more clear you become, the more vivid and complete your clairs will be, because then you'll be coming from a centered, a sense of centered self, and kind of like being the calm in the storm of reality and your life and so forth, so that you can actually see things without being too emotionally attached to them. Emotions can often cloud, like we were just talking about,
Yeah.
the results of what you get.
And also elemental balance. Sorry, not to. I
Yeah,
didn't mean to interrupt it. Elemental balance, because type of clairvoyance, like clairaudience is air, of course, and clairvoyance is fire. So you've got the clairs depending on the elements too.
yeah, elemental balance is part of what I'm talking
Yeah,
about,
yeah,
being clear and balanced within yourself. And and that way you're not overbalanced in one direction or another, because the danger of the clairs is if you get too much into just one of them, like the third eye, for example, then you can lose really basic touch with reality and with your body and with other things that might be important, and you get overbalanced in one direction and ignore the other direction of things. And that's when really super fanciful kind of thought processes can happen,
yeah.
when you're overbalanced in the clairs, because
And that's
then you see stuff and you think everything you see is real, and you think that nothing can lie to you because you've got this clairvoyant ability, which isn't necessarily
yeah,
true.
especially with the visual one,
Yep.
the audio one. Yeah,
Yeah. So
being air.
that kind of that, you know, being in the core, in the center, being an individual and being yourself and knowing who you are and so forth, and balancing yourself out. If you've been naturally gifted in one clair or another and you start that process of balancing, generally speaking, you will discover that your abilities will seem to deaden or dampen. They will become less effective. And that's because you're going through the process of balancing things. But then when you get through that and you're actually back to that center and you're coming from a different place, then your clairs will be much more reliable and actually stronger. They'll be different, and you'll have more control over what's happening to you, because really you see the people that are walking down the street that are talking to their hallucinations, and they're in the middle of sort of like a clair event. because I sometimes see their hallucinations too. And they're not grounded and they don't know what's going on around them, and it's not a happy place. It's not a good place to be. We want people to be healthy emotionally, um, and in all ways as possible, not just one thing. You don't want to be a savant when it comes to the clairs, and then having other people have to take care of you. Like, you can't help but be out of your body all the time, and someone has to walk you around and make sure you don't just jump in front of a car because you can't tell that they're there. But, that kind of thing. So we do have some ability, ways to develop them. The scrying video that I have has got some exercises there. I've talked about clear, there's clear aliens, which is smelling. I mean, there's a lot of the different clairs. I got a video just on the clairs.
Clear knowledge.
Right. Yeah, so, yeah, clear sentience, I think is what they call that in general. That knowing of everything, knowing something that you shouldn't know or never knew you knew and suddenly do know all about, which can just happen spontaneously. But the more you pay attention to yourself, do the meditation, the practice, the grounding, reality checks with friends and family to make sure you're not getting too far out there if you have anyone you can trust like that kind of thing. So Jenna says, I have a question if it's okay to ask. A woman received a Poppet doll. They were scared and brought it to me. What is the best way to get rid of it? The woman's husband had a terrible accident after they received it. Beth says, I'd use the ground.
Probably would be my choice.
Yeah. And she was saying that to Robert, but I don't think that Robert had that question.
Because you can also burn it if it's flammable and get rid of it, destroy its body,
Destroy it.
bury it. I probably want to
I
bury
think
it.
burying it is probably the safest course.
Yeah,
And
well,
you can also, okay, when I had to get rid of a very powerful object that I was trying to discharge, I actually wrapped the object in a material that no energy could get out of. So some form of polyester fabric, and you can test to see whether the energy is getting out by putting a piece of fabric over the item and using a pendulum. And if the pendulum is just dead, you have found the right material. And so you can wrap it in that material, dig a nice hole, put in some grounding stones and discharging stones like obsidian or petrified wood, like we talked about earlier, and bury it and leave it in the ground, and it will become separated from and then ground out completely, and should avoid any potential what's the word, springbacks on you. You don't need that. You don't need to get a reverb kind of thing. Rebound, that's it. Robert says, actually, I use both. Astor says, my neighbor's family member started trying to scare me about fairies, calling them dangerous predators. Oh no! I realized he was projecting. He was very nasty, saying he was an asshole and swearing and trying to be intimidating. Well, it sounds like he's the one who's scary. And maybe a dangerous predator himself. Projecting much? Fluid says, hello everyone. Hi, Fluid. Astor says, then I found out he just came from Burning Man and he did acid, so I think he was full of critters. Oh yeah. At one point he got up and wouldn't sit back down next to me. He kept trying to dominate. Oh, I'm sorry. I hate that kind of thing. It's like, okay. Jen says, wow, I love the Buddha head story, Siofra. What a beautiful thing you did for that spirit. Bless you. Thank you. He was very happy here. We weren't sure, because we got a lot of different deities, but he just fit right in. He was like, okay, this is great. Beth says, hi, everyone I missed. Awesome new people in here. Tina says, hello, everyone. Hi, Tina. Astor says, I think he was afraid of me. Yeah, that's often the case when people are trying to be intimidating. It's because they're afraid of you and trying to put you back in your place.
Very true.
I have a full kundalini, so I think I put the fear of God into him just by walking in the room. I've had people straight hiss at me and run away. Oh my. He was a jerk for sure. I stood up to him and said, well, if you don't if you have a bad attitude, the Fae might not like you. They are mirrors. He can kiss my grits. I think that's fantastic. Yes, that's a good response. So, congratulations. And I'm glad that you stood up for yourself. And I mean, the clearer you get, too, the more uncomfortable certain people will be around you because, you know, if they're trying to project on you and you're not accepting the projection, it's going to come right back at them. And that makes them feel very uncomfortable. Adriana says, greetings from the Netherlands. Hi, Adriana. Robert says, Siofra, did you ever do food magic? And if yes, can you give us an example and for what purpose? Well, I've done a lot of food magic with rituals and stuff like that. Found some nice recipes I liked, made special cakes, or tried to make a special cornbread, which didn't turn out very well, learning by, you know, experience and so forth. But you can do magic with your food on a daily basis just by charging it up. Ian does that pretty regularly before you eat, putting help, you know, healing energy and life force or so forth into the food before you consume it. I haven't done it to try and change someone else's perspective or anything like that. I haven't used uh, food magic in that sense.
It's become a big deal on a few of the little religions. I was, at one point in my life, I knew some Baha'i, people of the Baha'i faith, and it was an interesting thing that they would have feasts as part of their faith. And then I forget which other groups it was, were told never to eat anything at one of their feasts because they could potentially be converted by eating their food. And
And
because it
actually, the
was
Hare
charged up for
Krishnas had
their,
that
yeah,
kind of thing too. They have open feasts, and
yeah.
I went to a couple of them. They have wonderful food, but then they make you have to participate in their particular ritual and so forth, which I found offensive. And I find that
Yeah.
offensive in any religion or spiritual
Well,
practice.
I think that I don't know about the Baha'i thing because I didn't get involved with them enough to know for sure, but I knew that they pray over the food before it's served, and then so other religions are so apparently it's kind of a big thing among some organized religions. Ones I'm not familiar with, so I can't say enough to really know.
Right.
Then of course there's the Eucharist,
Well,
Catholics,
yeah,
but that's kind of different than
that's sort
regular
of food
food. Yeah,
magic.
but it kind of is.
It
Really,
is.
really it
It was
is. Yeah,
originally bread, which would be food. I
yeah,
mean, and
exactly.
you know, offering food to deities is pretty much standard in every Aboriginal culture there's out there to recognize and give, exchange energy and acknowledge their existence and ask for favor or, you know, for rain or for not rain or
Yeah.
whatever, you know, for bounty of one kind or another. So food is very potent, and after a ritual, feasting is pretty common, but is not doesn't just serve
Yeah.
the community feel and so forth of doing a
In a
group
lot of
ritual,
cases
but
helps to ground out the members of the ritual. Yeah.
exactly because doing magic is hungry work, and food helps to ground you and get you back into an ordinary everyday reality in a slower way than just sort of jumping right out of it and into, like, you know, traffic, as it were. Jen says, thank you so much. I connect strongly with Obsidian, so I will try that again. Thank you. I have so much to learn, but your channel is helping me so much. Thank you both for all you do. You're welcome. We're glad we can help. Robert says, I like Snowflake Obsidian. It's gentler stone. Yeah, it's pretty. I like it. I
It's
found
really
a
good.
piece of Snowflake Obsidian that was this big. That was at Goodwill for like 20 bucks, and I snatched that thing up. It's in my living room. It's a big, giant chunk. I'm like, okay, now that's a good price for a big rock. I don't know if they really knew what it was. Astor says he probably was still messed up from the drugs, so I left because he was so uncomfortable. Finally left with my neighbor to go outside and play with the fairies and summon UFOs and left that fool. Den says, thank you so much, Siofra and Ian, for sharing your wisdom. What a gift to the world you both are.
Oh, well,
Bless
thank
you.
you. That's awfully nice for you to say.
And Beth says, to Robert, I love Snowflake Obsidian. I love kitchen witchery. Shay says, hello, friends. Happy Sunday. Hi, Shay. Robert says, yes, Beth, Snowflake Obsidian is a great to eliminate fears. And Beth says, hi, Shay. Robert says,
Hi, Shay,
hi.
by the way.
Yes, and hi, Shay, Ian says. Jenna says, such a great conversation. I love it here. Yeah, we never know what we're going to talk about, which is one of the things we enjoy about our Sundays. Astra says the Baha'i people always try to convert me. Very aggressive, but not as bad as Christians.
Yeah.
It actually is kind of an interesting thing to me that so many different belief systems focus so much on trying to convert other people to their way of thinking, and it bespeaks to me that they're not that comfortable in what they're doing, because if they feel that they need to have the numbers in order to feel like their truth is real or something like that, that's like, okay. And that's part of the whole conversion thing.
Well, not to take a whack at the Christians, but excuse me for a sentence or two. It says in the Bible, specifically, I read a portion that I liked where it said that Jesus told him, I believe it is, that if you pray in a closet, you'll get your reward from the Lord. You pray out and open to make a spectacle of yourself, that is your reward. And so the Bible basically, Jesus basically says, don't proselytize.
Right.
So I think that says a lot about how seriously they take their religion. If they were really serious about it, they wouldn't be proselytizing. If they really bought and believed in what the Bible actually says, they wouldn't be proselytizing. So,
Well, if they thought that they were going to be saved, why do they want to have extra people to drag along with them? Just like, I don't know, share the joy, I
well,
suppose.
I'm just saying that they're going against their own Bible. So sorry. Just one example of many, many possible ones.
Yes.
That's just the one that's most in our face in the U.S. because that's our largest religion.
So Robert says, when it comes to Spirit Chiefer, what is your scariest experience ever and what happened? Well, the thing that should have been the scariest I wasn't scared of, so that's just sort of weird. Um, and I know I'd done a video on this. I was like 14, I think, maybe 15, somewhere in there, living in the house in Virginia. And I woke up and I could smell sulfur smoke in my room. I didn't really identify it as sulfur, but acrid smoke to start with. And it was like late spring and it had been a little chilly the night before. So we had a fire in the fireplace downstairs. We had a split level house. And so my first thought upon awakening and smelling what I thought was smoke was that someone had closed the flue in the fireplace. And so I was going to get up and go downstairs and check the fireplace and close the flue. So I rolled over on my back because I was laying on my side facing the window. And when I rolled over on my back, all of a sudden, the entire hallway that I could see from, my door frame, the entire hall was in flames. I mean, there was like this gigantic fire and it was loud. I could hear it. It changed the shadows in my room and was flickering and so forth. So I believed in the moment that the house was on fire, which explained the smoke in my brain. So since I was cut off from the rest of the house at that point because, that was the door to going down the stairs to get out any of the other doors, my only escape option was going out the window, which wasn't very high because as a split level, it was only about 5 feet or so. To drop down, I would have not hurt myself at all. So then I came upon my next plan, which was to get out of bed and to open up the window and to jump out because either everyone else in the house was already dead or they were outside wondering where I was and were worried about me. So I determined I was going to do that. And then all of a sudden, as I'm looking up, there's like all those shadows and things. And there's this one shadow that suddenly is darker than any of the other shadows. I've never seen a shadow that dark. And it flies down and pins me to the bed, just like covered me from here down and just pinned me completely to the bed and then started pushing me down. And it pushed me down with such force that I actually heard the springs in my bed creaking. So I know that that was actually happening. It wasn't a dream or anything. And I suddenly knew it was trying to shove me out of my body and take my body. And at that moment, I heard a voice in my head, which was my voice, which is always weird when that happens, but I have this extra voice that comes out every so often in a crisis. And the voice said to this thing, I know what you're trying to do, and you can't have me. My will is stronger than yours. And then I started to fight. I started pushing, trying to lift my head. It was the only thing I could move. And when I got my head off the pillow about 35 or 40 degrees or so, suddenly the shadow went off my body through the ceiling. I sat straight up because I suddenly had nothing to push against. And I sat straight up in bed, and there was no fire. Everything was quiet. There was no sound. And I still had the smell in my room. And then I got out of bed, and I walked downstairs in the dark without turning on a light and checked the fireplace because I was still convinced that somehow this had to do with the fireplace. And the flue was open, and there was a little stream of smoke just going straight up the flue. And so it wasn't the smell in my room. So I went back upstairs and went to bed and went to sleep. Woke up in the morning and was absolutely terrified that one, this had happened, and that two, I hadn't been afraid when it had happened. Three, why did it happen? What was it? What were they trying to do? Why did they pick me? What was the meaning of it all? And all that other stuff came up. So yeah, it should have been a lot more terrifying than it actually was, which is interesting to me. And your brain really tries to make a narrative that fits. So my initial narrative was that some force out there was trying to eliminate me before I came into my own, when I was still weak enough that I couldn't fight back, and they had miscalculated because they were wrong. And I have no clue if that's true or not. That's just a narrative I came up with in my head. The reality is I don't know. And yeah, it was very weird. So there you go. I guess that would qualify, right? As like the scariest thing that should have happened.
Yeah, I think that pretty much qualifies.
So Jen says, forgive me for asking so many questions, but how do I balance the elements? Do you do that with the pentagram? I've just started watching your pentagram video. Your scrying video was how I found you. Well, that's the beginning.
It's a method. Doing the banishing ritual of the pentagram properly is one way to balance the elements. Specifically, if you're really looking to specifically do that, I'd look to Barton's works because it's a bit of a process, and he explains it really well.
Well, understanding where your elemental imbalances are is a good first step. You figure, you can do sort of like a basic personality check in with yourself, and are you a people pleaser? Are you a good talker? Do you have difficulty with communication? Do you have fanciful thoughts? Do you go off the handle and get angry easily? You can look at both your strengths and your weaknesses and sort of start to get a feel for what's out of balance and what you can, and then start taking steps to do things about it. And as Ian has mentioned with the Barden stuff, you can do balancing exercises like breathing in the element and breathing the element back out, becoming more acquainted with the element and what it is and what it's for and so forth, and becoming more comfortable with it. I've kind of always had some trouble with both earth and fire. Earth, I've pretty much got down at this point. Fire is, it's been one of the holdouts as far as, well, in the beginning, because I remembered being burned at the stake. So I kind of had an aversion to fire altogether, and not liking conflict.
And there's two aspects you have to look out the elements. You can have a lack of an element, you can have an excess of an element, but also you can have control over an element, which means that if you have control over the element like fire, then things like anger won't have control over you because you'll have control over that. So you can you can have too much fire will tend to make a person angry, but there's also control over the fire in which they keep themselves calm. So there's two aspects like,
Oh yeah, like everything has
and of
got
course fire isn't
positive and
just,
negative
fire is also passion and
and
enthusiasm and also your
creativity and
metabolism and lots of good stuff
your
too. But
blood. Yeah.
just as a
Yep.
random example, you know.
Teresa says, and if Christians really cared about Jesus, they'd take him off the cross.
No
I know,
kidding.
the poor guy is like constantly suffering. Robert says, my experience with the dark being, I had one. At 3 a.m., a spirit was in my room saying she was Mother Night. She said, if the Matrix doesn't give you anything, ask me instead. Weird event. Yeah, that's pretty weird. Beth says, I struggle with fire. Robert says, I struggle with everything. Beth, do not purchase a flamethrower then. Ha ha. Yeah. Yeah, you probably don't want a flamethrower. Beth says, Robert, that will change in time. Robert says, I hope so, Beth. I am exhausted. Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like, this is a process. There's no one and done. Here's 10 easy steps to become enlightened and become a great
Yeah.
witch and
Yeah,
and
you
a
may put
perfect
it into 10
person.
steps, but there won't be easy steps.
That's right. They will take, and you'll have to keep on repeating them over and over again, kind of like, as things fall away, new things come to the surface, and you go like, oh, I thought I'd taken care of that. I guess there's still more for me to do. Fun. Here we go again. But if you can enjoy the journey when you're doing it and be gentle with yourself, it's like none of us are perfect. I try to remember this. Some of the past lives that I've remembered, I did not have some good past lives, and that's the thing. And I was not always a nice person in other lives, and all of us have got that kind of potential in our past history or whatever, because we can only understand what we're doing at the point where we are able to comprehend what effect our actions actually have on others and on ourselves. And ignorance is not stupidity. Ignorance is a lack of knowledge or basic information to be able to make, informed decisions. Stupidity is being given the information and choosing to ignore it.
Yeah.
That's my basic definition. I don't
Choosing
know.
to do the wrong thing anyway.
Yeah, well, that's evil. Depending on how far it goes, it can lead to evil actions, because doing something is bad and enjoying the process and having fun with watching the resultant chaos that comes from it is not a good thing, in my opinion. If someone's trying to attack you, that's one thing, but just going out and doing it, that's a whole different thing. Robert says, repeating, yes, sort of a loop going on. I know now they do assist, so I learned how to manipulate time. It's fascinating and doable. Well, it's more like a spiral, not a loop, because every time you come around the circle back to where you began, you're a little bit higher up
Yeah.
in the energetic frequency. And then so each time you go around, you're getting closer and closer and closer to the source. So not really a loop, but it can feel that way when you're farther down, and you have to watch out for what I call the negative loops, the negative downward spiral. Your thoughts can do that to you pretty easily, where you start to think something, a negative thought, and then you feed it with fear, anxiety, worry, whatever, and then it starts to spiral down. And if it goes too far in that downward direction, it has nowhere to go but continue on down till it hits a point at the bottom energetically, and then you can reverse it and come back up. But if you can catch it when it's just starting that loop, you can actually stop it and turn it back around and go back in an upward spiral. Anyway, Fluid says, then they will simply feed off your emotions and feelings of being all powerful. Yep, people like that. Some of them. Astra says, if people try to curse you, what's good defensive magic for that? I notice a lot of psychopaths in the magical community just try to harm others. Well, sending energy back to not accepting energy from anyone that you don't know or hasn't asked you permission. And if you have that set up in your energy field, it's an automatic thing. reflecting their energy back at them. So then, if they're doing nice things for you, they get nice rewards, but then they should have asked. I mean, a hug can seem like a nice thing to the person who's trying to give the hug, but can feel like an imposition and a smothering and like a violation of a personal boundary, the person who's receiving the hug without permission. So, there's that.
Well, yeah, that's kind of, if people do that, it's kind of an assumption that, people have
Everybody's
gone
like
through the
them,
same thing, and some people
right?
have really serious intimacy issues due to abuse and other problems. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why permission.
Yeah.
The person that says no is the one who should have all the power when it comes to that kind of thing. If it's not okay with you, it's not okay with you. And you can actually put that out into your energy field and say, you have a universal no for accepting any forceful negative energy coming at you. And anyone who's sending positive energy needs to have permission. And it will build up over time. The more often you visit that and reaffirm that and, learn how to shield and ground and so forth, the more automatic and powerful that will become. So it's all about it. So Fluid says about spiral in time, it is interesting that our solar system is moving forward and planets are spinning around the sun. So this can make actually a spiral pattern. I have seen that. They have an animation for that I've seen, and it's pretty friggin' awesome to watch the animation of the dance of the planets in the sun, and yes, and the patterns that it makes. It's just incredible. So yes, it does. We are not still. No matter how grounded you are, we are always in motion. There's no such thing as absolute stillness when it comes to physicality. Beth says, return to sender. And Robert says, return to sender. Elvis. I think that 9 is supposed to be a parentheses. Astra says, this guy who claimed to help me with the house cleaning was a total creep, and I didn't realize it. He had me put my energy into a stone, and his brother magician did a ritual to hide me using abyss.
That's pretty obnoxious,
Okay.
I think.
Well, it could have been a good thing for protection, but only if they were ethical to start with. That's why I encourage people to do these things for themselves. That's why I have a policy of not doing that kind of stuff for other people anyway. Because for one, I may not get it right. I may not know exactly what it is the other person needs. And for another, it's a much more powerful thing for a person to be able to protect themselves than it is to then become dependent upon someone else to protect them. And I'm about self-empowerment, my own and everyone else's. And besides which, it saves me a lot of time and energy. I don't want to be responsible for all that stuff. Fluid says, isn't sending back energy uphold this connection between you and the sender? Isn't it better to scrape it off, put some protection, and move on? What's your thought?
Well, you're kind of right, but if you're sending back their energy, it's their energy, and so you're actually breaking the connection with them by getting all of their energy out of your aura,
Absolutely.
out of your system.
Yeah, and that is like, it's theirs to deal with. So if they don't like the results, they can stop trying to send you energy. So that would be, I would say, you can do it the other way, but then if you think about it, my stance on this is if people never feel the consequences of their actions, they have no reason to change or to grow.
Yeah, it's their own karma coming right back at them, and especially if you just send their energy right back, you're not adding anything to it, so the only karma they get is an absolute direct result of their own actions.
That's right.
And they
And
get back all
if they don't get back their own consequences from what they do, I mean, you look at bullying and stuff like that, and if people are encouraged to be bullies because there's other people that think it's cool and they're like, yeah, keep it, and they egg them on, they have no reason to change their behavior, and they don't understand the consequences of what they've done. So I don't feel bad about it. If you can disagree and you can do it a different way, and that's perfectly fine, but that's my thought. It's what you asked for. It says, sorry for bad English.
For sure, yeah.
I see that animation too. Astor says, this happened last year, and he said I couldn't do the lesser banishing because if I did, any ceremonial magic would harm him or me. They tried to bind me, and it didn't work. Oh, wow. I was very naive and knew nothing, and it didn't work. Well, good. I'm glad it didn't work.
Yeah,
and
anybody tells you
if he tells you that, then he's not a good person, so forget him.
Yeah, if they tell you not to do the lesser banishing, yeah, that's a big sign right there.
That's a
'Cause that
big
would,
red flag
yep,
on a magical level.
yep.
No, don't do any cleansing and clear yourself of my energy because, ooh, that would be bad. I'm like, I'm sorry, what? Okay, yeah, good call. Beth says, great live, guys. Blessed be one and
Thank you.
all. Bye, Beth, if you're leaving, but we're not done yet, so we'll still be here. Robert says, Schieffer, I saw that some people want to destroy their own chakras. What is this?
They're
Stupidity.
crazy.
It's
They're
stupidity.
insane.
Yeah, it's stupidity.
Yeah.
There's no reason to destroy your own chakras. It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever.
It'd
I
be
have,
like shooting yourself in the liver or something with a gun. I mean, your chakras are etheric organs. It's like trying to destroy your own organs, just your astral ones instead of your physical ones. It's really dumb,
put a
sorry.
hole in your heart,
Yeah, if you'll excuse me, but yes, more likely to just like,
cause you some really serious problems.
yeah,
They're there for a reason.
yeah,
It's
let
not.
those people go their own way and destroy themselves.
Well, this is
Don't
sort of
hang
like the
out with them.
TikTok witches that said that they were going to kill the moon.
Yeah.
And then the moon was mad at them and they were all freaking out. I'm like, you can't kill the moon. I'm sorry. You cannot destroy the moon on a spiritual level. This is not a possibility. They're completely delusional. That's my take on that, too. So Astra says, do I need to worry about his spell since it didn't work? The brother who tried to hide me was kind. The other brother was a creep. He said he would do bad things to people and said it balances the
Yeah,
scales.
it's an excuse for doing evil. I've run across that nasty shit
I
before.
have a
Excuse my
question.
language, sorry.
Is he a vampire? And I ask this for a reason because I'm reading the Vampire Codex right now to do a video about it. And this sounds like that. Psychic vampires who justify what they're doing based on balancing the scales because they are the dark that balances the light. So I don't know. She says, nuts, he was just a sociopath. Yeah, I'm sure he was one of those too. Uh, Teresa says, dowsing. What causes the rods to cross? The energy stream coming out through the ground into your hands that affects the rods. It's I can douse, and you can douse for things other than just water, but water dowsing is the easiest. It actually okay, so moving water sends out an energetic signature, sort of like your own aura does. It's like it makes an electrical charge kind of thing that then and magnetic charge that can then be picked up by people that are open to and sensitive to the energy. And then they let their body sort of become the conduit for the energy to come out through their hands. And then they can find well water. A really good dowser can actually tell how deep the water is, how much is in there, when where it's going to go and whether it's and all the other stuff. But you can douse for other things like I met a person who dowsed for oil wells, which I'm not that fond of, but he got paid a lot of money by oil companies to actually douse for wells for them, save them a bunch of dry wells when the geologist said it should be there, but then it wasn't. So yeah. Jen says, thank you so much, Ian and Shifra. Which Barton book would be good to start with? I'm a Virgo if it matters. I too come from an abusive home, so learned young not to show my emotions. Did you just answer that question? Or
No, if you're going to start with one, start with the first book, which is Initiation into Hermetics, because that's the one that starts you off with all of the elemental balancing and things. His second book is a book on evocation. His third book is a book on the Kabbalah, but you probably wouldn't get too much starting from one of those. It's kind of a systematic course you go through from beginning to end, especially his first book. But I would recommend reading all of them for their huge volumes and amounts of information in them.
yeah, he sprinkles stuff throughout all of them that you don't. It's not
Yeah.
like collated in it. Like you'll find something about wands in one, and then the same different information about wand
Yeah.
making in another, and elements and that kind of thing.
Yeah, you might also want to read Frabato, which is his fictional book, which contains a lot of truth in it and not fiction, and is very close to being an actual autobiography of Barden, except he died before it could be finished. He only had it outlined, so his secretary finished it for him. But it's a very interesting read on its own. Fictional, but you can pull lots of real magic out of it.
So Fluid says, yeah, I'm still not sure if I should serve karma or I should just leave things to the outer forces. It's one of those lifelong questions, I guess. Well, yeah, you have to decide for yourself.
Yeah.
But like you said, you asked for my take on it, and that was mine. Beth
Yeah,
says,
mine
I'm
too.
listening. Okay, good. I'm glad to know you're still here.
We definitely have the same take on that aspect. Yeah.
Robert says, yes, because it's a trend online, the destroying
Destroying
your
chakras.
chakras.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Stupid trend.
Sorry.
It's kind of like taking, large quantities of cinnamon and dying from it. Just because somebody's challenging people to do it doesn't mean they should.
Yeah.
Jen says, Shifra, I so know what you mean about that spirit that is blacker than the blackest black. I had a similar experience when I was 17. It sat on my chest and pinned me to the bed. No flames, though. Well, I think the flames was just like, an extra special touch. I'd never seen a giant fire before. It was like, whoa. It was so accurate. It was very weird. Grateful Alice says, I have to go. Take care, everyone. Blessed be. Bye, Grateful. Thank you for being here. Asher says, yes, he is a vampire. Well, see, there you go.
Yep. Called that one.
I called that one.
Yep.
What can I say? I'm that good. Beth says, I don't know anyone that's tried that. Don't listen to these cute young girls on YouTube and TikTok. They're great at using beauty filters and editing, but they're babies. They don't have any juice.
True. Got to practice to have the juice.
I know. You got to actually know what you're doing to have the juice. Just because you're looking good doesn't mean you know anything. Robert says, a Nosferatu? Hee hee. Robert says, see ya, owl. Fluid says, yeah, that's why I'm talking about serving karma. It can make you this creep who just serves destruction and justify it to be balancing the scales. Well, I'd let karma take care of that because karma is both good and bad, and the universe has got a better idea of what's actually going on. Like if I do something for someone, which I had a few times, I usually show the situation when I'm doing it to the heads of Saturn, because they're going to know a wider view and what needs to be done in order to serve the greater
Well,
good.
I have another thing too. Let's say you buy that argument. Let's say you buy that argument and you think you're serving someone's karma. That ignores the fact that if you do something bad to them, you still just made negative karma for yourself. Even if you think you're clearing somebody else's karma by doing something harmful, you still get the bad karma of having done something negative. It doesn't free you from that. Even if you were to actually do something like that that really would serve somebody's karma, and it doesn't work like that because karma doesn't come back exactly the same as what was sent out. Karma always hits the weak point in a person, in their personality, in their actions, and there's where it comes out. So it's not a exact tit for tat. It's you set loose a negative energy, that negative energy comes back to you in some form, but how that affects you depends a lot on how your life is set up and your imbalances and all that stuff.
I think Fluid was talking about the sending energy back to a person who's sending negative energy at you in this case. But yeah, I agree. But I mean, that's the other thing too, is like it's their energy. So talked and answered. So Fluid says, what a great example. Thanks, Astra. Robert says, 72 minutes done already. Time flies like the wind. Yes, it does. Jen says, such great advice, Shifra. I'm trying now to learn it. Value the journey without judgment. Thank you both so much for sharing your wisdom. You have created such a beautiful space here. Astra says, I never talk to that fool again. And if he took a stone with my energy, can he hurt me with that? Not if you let him. Unless you let him. So no. It's just like, say no. That stone has nothing to do with you anymore. Just sort of separate yourself from it. He might think he can. I actually think I'm more powerful than him. He seemed very uncomfortable around me. Yeah.
Yeah, you could, for a quickie little thing, you could visualize taking an athame or a knife of some sort if you don't have an athame and just cutting the connection between you and that rock, or visualizing any connection between it going into the ground and all that energy going into the ground. So yeah, you can prevent it.
You can also do like some candle magic with that one, which can work pretty well, where you can write it, on the candle and then burn the candle all the way down. And as the candle burns, the connection between you and that stone gets less and less and less until it's completely gone. That'd be another method that you could use. Fluid says maybe you should check this with divination of some kind, because maybe it just doesn't work. Robert says, Siofra, did you ever work with Odin? Not on purpose. Not that I know of. Although me and crows and ravens have got a strong connection, so there is something there. Violet says, did you ever hear of a rivalry between Thoth and Hecate? No, they're from different pantheons.
Yeah, I'm not familiar.
Thoth is a god of magic and knowledge from Egypt, and Hecate is the dark goddess of the moon, so I don't know why there would be a rivalry between them. Astra says, I think I'm probably okay. Robert says, I'm okay if you're okay. Okay. Fluid says, that's good way. That's good way. We often don't know what is necessary to balance the scales. Well, we need to widen our perspective. And Robert says, this is true, Fluid. Astra says, I visualize the stone cracking and breaking. That works. Yeah, that sounds like a good visualization. Absolutely. And then all your energy just comes back to you and he can't use it. Yeah. Robert says, Siofra, would you accept to call Hecate for me? I have called upon her a long time and still no response. Maybe if you call her, maybe she would consider. No, I'm sorry. I can't do that for you. That's between you and her. I don't think that me interceding on your behalf is what would be required. Maybe there's something in yourself that's blocking her ability to commune with you. So try and see if you can figure out what that might be. Fear or anxiety or a resistance, or I don't know. Or maybe it's a different goddess that wants to communicate with you and she's being respectful and waiting her turn. I don't know. Okay, you're right. It is best, Siofra. I know. People want me to do stuff for them all the time. It says, she gave me some nightmares, but good ones. They were showing hidden aspects of me and some wounds. Well, if you can learn something from it, then it's a good thing. But that's how you turn it into a positive thing for yourself. Robert says, yes, Siofra, it's best. Not the answer you were looking for, I know. I just go like this and go, poof. Here we go. I was called and asked to work with Odin and or Freya. Okay. Well, they're definitely nothing like Hecate. Maybe the conflict is there. I have heard stories that sometimes she doesn't like working with other deities, so I don't know if that's true or not. I don't have a problem with any of them working together, the ones that work with me. If they're not going to get along, then they just can't come around. So I sort of have my ground rules when it comes to that. Violet says, I learned about the Clares being a part of an element, and Hecate and Thoth answer was great. I love you guys. You two are such a treasure to share your vast wisdom. Cool.
Thank you.
I mean, people make stuff up, and the thing is they look for commonalities between things that aren't there, taking two completely different languages and times and symbolism, and then trying to meld them together and force them to, be part of the same system when they're not, which is annoying. Yeah. I see that happen quite a bit when it comes to magical stuff. It's like, yeah, people, come on.
Yeah, the whole Astarte and Astaroth thing.
Yes.
Really annoys me.
And there's a bunch of them. Just one of them. Yes. So Teresa says, I once did a cord banishing candle spell, and the cords created a giant flame that set off the fire alarm. I laughed and laughed. Oh, that's good. I like that. Robert says, many tarot reading confirmed I was super, super protected. Maybe they don't want me to work with those spirits. But when the time is right and things are open, then things will happen. That's kind of the way it works. Gus says, that's why it's so important to know your deities when creating your altar. Some of them don't like each other, and you may have multiple altars. Don't piss them off. Robert says, well, each time I call Kali, the word Hecate shows up in my mind. weird thing. There are some similarities between Kali and Hecate. Violet says, tell me the Astarte one, please.
Oh, well, there's a bunch of people who've taken Astaroth is a spirit being that is considered demonic by the Goetta, King Solomon's stuff. And of course, Astarte is a goddess, and they do some stuff for this language, and it developed it this way, and it developed this way, and basically they prove through a bunch of bull that the two are the same, and one developed into the other, and it's simply not true. They're two totally different beings. One has nothing to do with the other, but they've connected them together, and then these, if you'll excuse the word pea brains, have started worshiping Astaroth and believing they're worshiping Astarte, and it's like, what is wrong with you people? I mean, you know, why not just like worship Astarte if you want to? Don't try to make it. They want to make demon worshiping sound good. They want to give it a positive spin somehow in their own brain. So that's the rationalization they're using to worship what's considered demonic beings by the Goetta, and I will not necessarily call them demonic beings because that's a whole other discussion. But yeah, so one of those kind of things.
So Jenna says, majority of people I've seen have an NDE that initiated them on a shaman's path. I've had a divinely guided life and always had several abilities, but my NDE was a dream. I have seen you. Have you seen this before? I don't know. Near-death experience? That's what you're talking about?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, I've had one myself, but and I also saw one of my former deaths, not quite as a dream, but sort of. But yeah, that's certainly one way of getting it, I think. Fluid says, yeah, to me, I feel like they have something in common, both being Dark Mothers. Denise says, hi, everyone. Glad to catch Siofra live again. Yes, and I'm so sorry you came in on the end of the show. Robert says, I never was attracted with Astaroth or Beelzebub, whatever. Astra
They're
says,
two different beings, by the way, according to
they
the
are.
Goetta. Sorry.
Yeah. Astra says, I think it may be a layer of my aura, but it can be physically seen. Just wondering if that's normal. Wait a minute. I think I missed that. Yeah. Astra says, have you noticed your own aura with vibrating layers like a film with frame layers? This happens to me and my neighbor after playing with UFOs. We glow, or when we first wake up. Okay. I think it may be a layer of my aura, but it can be physically seen. Just wondering if that's normal when doing spiritual activities. I think that it is.
Yeah, you're probably, that's kind of the way things start out developing. When you start out developing clairvoyance of seeing your own aura and such.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and also, like, there's a lot of different things going on. You've got your really close aura, which is just like a half an inch or so for most people around the skin, and then you get the other parts of your aura that go out from there. Violet says, ooh, that was so interesting. Thank you. Jenna says, I died in the dream and had many extraordinary experiences in the 6 years since. Yeah, I think that initiation in a dream state is not completely uncommon. And I don't know if it has to be a death experience, but that certainly is very typical of transformation, changing states and so forth is a death anyway, because you're dying from one state and being born into another. So it'd be a perfect imagery for that kind of thing. And certainly literal ones definitely give you that sense. Robert is playing with the NDE, calling it a near demonic experience. Jenna says, I ran out of room for the rest of my comment. I think we got to it. And he says, laugh out loud, but at least I caught you and appreciate the connection to all. Yes, we're glad that you're here. Asher says, this stuff is freaky. I almost called my therapist when I first saw it. I bet. It's like, when I first saw the vivid green around my aura, I was just like, wow, that is fantastic. That's the best green I've ever seen. It was very surprising. And then, of course, I got like the trails, you know, uh, like when I moved my hand and then the green stayed behind a little bit before it caught up. It was kind of interesting. Fluid says, I read about initiation by death experiences. Wow, it's interesting.
Yeah, there are some ceremonial magic groups that use that. It's pretty typical in around like the third degree to undergo like a shamanic death ritual type of thing. And then a lot of them that are based along Rosicrucian sort of lines, like the Golden Dawn, do a death and rebirth ritual at about the fifth degree. And in those ceremonial rituals, the person is also uh, tied to a cross. And the significance of that is that they've balanced the four elements, and now there's a rose blooming on the cross where it used to be just four elements. So the rose is a symbol of spirit. So at that point, it's a symbol of going into your awakening. Sorry, got too far off on initiations, but yes, they're considered very powerful. All sorts of different ones in all sorts of different realms, including shamanic realms, not just ceremonial magic. Yeah.
And Astra says, I can't see colors yet. And yes, it's the trails I see. And Robert says, I can see the white around the head on a white wall. Astra says, that's the word I was looking for, trails. I can't see colors yet. Robert says, it's 18 hours and 30. So good night, everyone. Yes, it is.
Good night,
Thank
Robert.
you.
And yes, it's looks like we're coming up on our time on
Yep,
the
it's
channel.
been
Yeah.
an hour and 31 and 31 when
Yep.
I looked at it. Fluid says, I've got in my magical course something like that. Maybe I'm crazy, but I'm excited to get there. And Jen says, thank you so much, Chief and Ian. So great to share this time with everyone. Have a wonderful week, everyone. Blessed be. Robert says, see you next week, Jen. Astra says, me and my neighbor were playing with it and moving our arms around. Ah, that's fun, isn't it? Night. Okay, bye, everybody. This has been
Thank you for being here and asking
Yep.
such interesting questions.
This has been fun, as usual. We've had a great time. So send me your questions, and you can send me an email at cheapersmagicalcove@gmail.com.
Yeah, Rosicrucians, Jen, are one of my more fascinating subjects to study myself.
Alrighty then. Bye bye.
Bye.